welcome to ArtCo Afternoon Arts. Thanks for hanging out with me. My name's Amber. I'm the artistic director slash cat herder. You see, he's making himself at home on top of all of our little materials that we're going to be working with today, because we're going to be working with a lot of extra magazines that I've got laying around, and then also papers that you have laying around, and we're going to use these to do the age-old technique of collage. Thank you so much for joining us today. Saturdays are our long-term project days. Take a look at our schedule. I know that we've got the image as the header for this live stream, so make sure you're taking a look at our schedule every day of the week. We offer something different, and of course Doobs is always hanging out. He's the original Deep Ellum Alley Cat from the yard of Deep Ellum Art Company, the son of the cat that kind of adopted us before she got fixed. And so he likes to hang out and create with us too. And so this makes for a really fun kind of time. And I love this idea of playing around with collage. I decided to make this a long-term project, even though we don't do, here I'm going to get his bed up as well, even though we don't do a lot of hard stuff in the beginning, but I also want to go over cutting techniques with you guys and everything else. Make sure you're taking the time to go online to look at all of our live streams that we have to offer. We've also got a really nice selection of merchandise, and more importantly, we have a wonderful selection of all of our artist work from local DFW area. You guys, we work and service with a large amount of artists, over 350 different types, from students to self-taught to wildly successful, and has over 40,000 YouTube followers, and those that have been solid sellers in the high echelon, high fine art game as well. And so we have this really nice diverse crowd, which I love with my teacher heart, because while we have this diverse crowd, we have a crowd that works with each other really well. So we've got a fantastic community, and they all work together, they share knowledge, they collaborate. So it makes for really fun, different kinds of work that's online. So make sure you're taking a look at those. I'm not really going to go into the actual project creation today. I do want to flip through some stuff and talk about the history of collage. Now, collage is French in its origination, and it's also something that was brought to European sensibilities more so, or Picasso actually in Spain, because he saw this really great technique and he decided to utilize it in some of his artwork. You also see here, here's one by Kurt Schwitters. That's another paper collage from the 1920s. He was part of the Cubist influence and movement as well. Picasso and Baroque actually was the one that brought the technique of collage, also known as papier colle, which was the original technique, colle meaning glue. And so Picasso in particular, even though this isn't his piece, he started playing around with gluing these types of paper, different types of paper on the page, and then drawing around and seeing how they changed and moved with the scape. So it's a fun technique. But what's really, really important about this technique is that we're very careful with how we cut. And so that's what we're going to work with here. I'm going to play around. I know there's one that I definitely wanted to cut up here. I wanted to get this face. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I get this guy cut out. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to try to at least get this guy kind of cut out, but I want to leave as much of my magazine kind of viable as possible, because I also want to make sure, maybe I want to go back and use some of this stuff again. And so I'm just kind of choking back. I'm using a regular pair of scissors because I figure that's mostly what you guys have. Now, if you have a pair of really small scissors that are extremely sharp made for cutting paper and collage, they allow you to make turns and stuff a little bit easier. But you notice I'm doing this, I started all the way down at the blade and very slowly just kept cutting. So I'm just kind of going along with the outside edge of this. I highly recommend that you guys have. Oops. I want to make sure I get the rest of that white off of there. I don't want a white outline. Now I'm going to show you a messy way to cut it out. Okay, so I have a clean white sheet of paper here. Here's a nice black piece. Alright, so imagine, actually we'll do it right here. Imagine I'm going to take this and I'm going to glue this on this magazine. So you see how this seamlessly integrates here because there's no like weird color as a boundary. But then here it's really messy because I've got the white line work and I've got the red, so it doesn't. See how it makes it pop out and not belong more here, but it belongs more here, yeah? And so this is what we're going to be working on with this project, is making sure that we're getting all those tiny little changes. It's kind of like, have you guys ever watched like documentary series and then they have like where they're talking about helicopters and how they can fly? They have a technique of flying, or a style, I guess, not technique, called nap of the earth. And so nap of the earth is where you fly pretty darn fast and you're hugging the ground as low as possible and you're kind of following the terrain. So if it goes down, you dip down. Like you want to stay a certain amount of distance from the terrain and shift with it, right, as you move very, very fast. It's like the best roller coaster in the world. I've had to find a couple of those, even though it kind of makes you want to throw up, but super fun. But that's kind of what we're doing with our scissors, because we want to hug and go in those valleys and make sure we grab. See here, I've got a lot of, if I turn it around on the other side, you see all these tiny nuances here. And so that helps give believability to my image. I do have a bit right here. I've got a bit of negative space, and that's what I wanted to make sure that I showed you guys, because we want to also cut those out. Now if you don't find yourself in an ownership of an X-Acto knife, I highly recommend them. The tips on these will help you very much so in cutting out all of our negative spaces. If you're using an X-Acto knife, make sure your fingers are always behind them. So you can use your scissors, but if you really want to get the best of sharp cuts out of your images, really your best friend is going to be the X-Acto knife. And I like to go in and cut out every single negative space, because when I go to do my collage, that means all of my stuff will show through this. You see how that goes from dark to now I've got all that stuff showing through it. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing that when I get all of my negative space out. Now that I've got this guy, I'm going to go ahead and set him off. And now I'm going to keep playing with things. Always safety first though. If I'm done using my knife, I need to make sure to put that away and make sure that I've got a really nice, a really nice cover on that, or the blades put away. Ooh, I like this one, so I think I'm going to cut this out. I'm just going to take this whole page out because it's inconsequential what is on the other side. I'm going to start out with my scissors, and then I'll probably use my X-Acto for some of my more complicated parts. But for this part, I think we'll be alright with the scissors. Now you notice I don't really have much of a plan right now. I'm cutting out things that are extremely kind of interesting to me, which is going to be something that you're going to want to do as well. Something that's interesting to you, all these little odd things. We're going to play around with attaching these together once we kind of hit like an aha piece. I will point out this one's got a shadow on it. I'm going to keep that shadow because I think that that will help maybe seed it. But if I end up not needing the shadow, then I can always cut it off later. But I want to make sure that I just kind of keep it for now always kind of skirting, making sure I don't leave too much of that lighter area in here. We don't want our pieces to have little halos around them. We want to really hug that outside line so we don't see a hint of that background in the original image. And so that's our goal, what we're really working towards. And so I'm not going to need that anymore. I'm going to get you guys back down here. So I had a little piece on my eraser that I couldn't quite get with my scissors, so I'm going to get that there. And then we're going to get the inside cut. Now remember, I said I wanted to keep my shadow, so I'm going to keep my shadow even on the inside. I want to make sure that little triangle is gone. I can use my X-Acto in order to pick up any extra papers that I have, and then I'm just keeping my fingers behind my X-Acto. I want to make sure that I'm doing this safely, and then we're just cutting these pieces out. We're really working on our attention to detail and practicing this technique of getting these guys as accurately cut out as possible. Now if you look at any good collage and you Google it, collage art, all your really good collages are the ones where you can't see any of the original background of any of the images that are kind of smashed together. And so that's our aim as we're cutting out all these random things. You know, me personally, I'm going to go for like this surreal kind of look. I mean, I like this guy so far. I think it'd be fun. Maybe I could end up cutting off top of the head and having things coming out. We'll see. Maybe this guy could end up going around part of his face. I don't know. We'll get some dancing ladies on there or something. But in the meantime, as I'm thinking about all these ideas, I'm cutting all my stuff out. That's kind of the fun part of this project, is you kind of have to work with what you have, meaning the images that you can find that are available for you to cut out. Sure, you could print out all kinds of things online and do what you want, but then that takes away the creative purpose of this project, which is really just kind of figuring out how to do this and be inspired by the things that are already around us. So I'm very carefully going to make sure that guy's off. So now I've got a cool pencil that's also still got its shadow on there. So I mean, that might not be too terrible, kind of going around his face or something. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. Maybe it could go behind like another little weird halo. Alright, we're going to keep playing with these. I'm going to put those guys off to the side. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I've got my cover put on. And then I'm going to continue to flip through and see what other stuffs I got here. Now I want to make sure, I've got you guys down, don't I? I want to make sure that I'm also ooh, I really like these flowers. So I'm going to cut these guys out for sure. I'm going to try to get this paper out as close to the seam as possible. I'm not sure that I want the rest of this, but you know what? Maybe I do want, I think I might want that spaceship. So I'm going to cut him down to something manageable. Maybe I'll want these deep blue things. I don't know. I might. But I think right now I'm just going to set these guys off to the side. Maybe I'll want to use these later. It's always good to have some solid colors. But in the meantime, I've got my rocket ship and then I've got my flowers. So I've got to kind of figure out how I want to cut these guys out. Man, that's going to be a lot of cutting. But what we'll do is I'm just going to stick with these guys. And so I'm going to go through here. And I'm going to start picking out my boundary. Now this guy's complicated. I'm going to bring you down so you can see a little bit better. This guy's kind of complicated. So I'm going to have to be careful with this. So you can see how I'm picking out these little details here, so that I can get this guy. You know what, I'm going to cut that guy off. They'll never know the difference. Well, I mean, you'll know the difference. And so I'm using my X-Acto knife on my thinner things. See how that stuff's nice and pulled away? And so when I have stuff that has points, I've always got to kind of have my blade work with me. You know, work smarter, not harder. Like, I can go out past things. I've got to get my knife in those tiny little points, and I can't really turn knives very well. It's easier with these smaller ones, but still, we want to kind of avoid that. It doesn't matter if I overshoot my cuts here because I'm not using my background for anything. And I'm just going in and getting all this stuff cut. It's a methodical process. It's a process where we work on our attention to detail, which is really good in a very, very useful sense. It's a great skill and tool to use, because if you become really attention to detail here, just looking at an image, you're kind of training your brain how to do it in other areas too, which that's always a good thing. Alright, you see how that's looking real neat right there, right? I've got a couple leaves that are kind of dark. Maybe I missed one there. There we go. This will help me clean up any little sections that I missed when I cut off the rest of my background. And I'm just going to get these guys cut. Remember, art's not always the hard-hitting, super exciting wow moments, but we do have to put in the work and the time for the attention to detail. You know, we've got a lot of famous work that works off collage. I know a lot of our concert posters in the music industry, in the fine art world, there's a lot of collage artists that have been wildly successful. Now remember, I'm cutting on a mat here that's made for cutting. If you are cutting on a kitchen table, you need to put a piece of cardboard down. You need to protect your table. You don't want to end up cutting your whole table up for this project. So make sure you're protecting your spaces, especially if you're using things like X-Acto knives. Now I'm going to go in the other direction because I need to have a sharp one there. And I test it. I kind of pull it back. That way I can pull all this stuff going. So I'm just continuing to follow along my outside boundary lines here. And you see how I shift it around depending on, you know, once I start cutting into the image, I kind of want to cut away. This also saves you in case you slip. you don't want to slip into your image and mess up all your hard work. So I try not to cut in very much because I don't want my knife to slip. And you shouldn't have to use a lot of pressure. And if you do have to use a lot of pressure when you're cutting with your X-Acto knife, that's usually your signal that you need to change out your blade and that it's either gotten chipped at the end or it's dull. And they're real easy to replace. You just kind of loosen them up and the blades come in and out, and then you can buy more. I'm going to get this guy back in here. I'm going to tighten him back up. Okay, we're almost done cutting these flowers out. Remember, at this point, you're finding images that you like, and you're cutting them out. And we're going to use these as a basis to come up with a design after we've got a good amount of images together. Okay, I'm going to get this rose cut out separately. I didn't mean to connect it with the others. This guy's supposed to be separate. Watch this magic. Oh, look at that. So we've got a fun little rose perfectly cut out all the way around so that we can turn around and add that onto our collage project. I'm also going to get the rest of my flower cut out here. And this one will obviously have to go down at the bottom of a page because it's already got the cutoff there. But at least we have the rest of it all nice and seamlessly cut out. So we've got a nice little segment of flowers there that we can maybe put around an edge. I think I'm going to save these other flowers too because I think they look super interesting. And then they also kind of parallel and repeat that main image. So I'm going to make sure that I get these guys included as well. And I'm just using my X-Acto knife to kind of get these outside spots recorded. I don't need any more of that one. And then I'm going to get this guy cut out. And I just like to clean up my little bits of paper as I go, because otherwise, boy, does it get messy fast. Okay, trying to get this guy cut out. So I'm going to get this other one. Sometimes you just have to hit it from another side. Like I felt that paper starting to buckle because I had so many other things cut out. So I just kind of readjusted and started cutting from a different direction. So now my rose should be free from that paper. You see just a little bit of sweat on my finger. Helps pick that up, so I've got a really nice clean cutout of that. You see? So we want to make sure we've got nice clean cutouts of everything as we're working with our beginnings of our collage. As a matter of fact, I want to get my little rocket ship cut out. I even like to get these, man, that's a teeny tiny change. We want to make sure we've got all that in. And so I'm just being really careful with my X-Acto knife. I want to make sure that I'm getting everything recorded in here. All these tiny changes. Kind of look at it like a competition on how accurately can you and how cleanly can you cut something out. And so we want to make sure we've got this stuff really nice and clean. I even down to these teeniest of details. And sometimes if you don't have much to tack on, changing the angle of how you hold your X-Acto knife can be helpful. And so now I've got a tiny little rocket ship here, and I even got the teeny tiny little changes in the paddle oars there taken care of. So we're going to continue to work and get all of these images cut out. Let's see what else do we have. Is there anything here? Let's look at this wired one. Got cows in here. That's a fun, interesting scape. We might come back to that one. And I've got a good amount of red. Press one to hear more. None of those are really hitting me too terrible. I'm not too excited about that. Ooh, these are fun. I like these. This might make for a really fun, this might make for a really fun background, so I'm going to keep that. And I'm going to keep this one. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with these yet, but I'm going to pull this guy back up. But I think I want to hold on to those just because I might actually want to use those for something else, yeah? Because these can make for some really cool kind of bulbous backgrounds, or I can cut out all the individual ones, or I can make this look like it's a wave going on top of something. So I think we'll play around with that. That'll be super fun. And then I'm just continuing to go through and pull all these different images out that I might think would be enjoyable for me to pull out and add into my piece of artwork. So I think I've got a cool little, not the Copenhagen, but we've got a cool little, I think I'm just going to pull this page out because there's nothing else on there that I'm really going to want. But I do want this watch. Okay, so I'm going to get this guy cut out. This one I can use my scissors for. I've got a lot of really great, sharp, long kind of lines here. Make sure I get this guy cut accurately. I don't want to accidentally cut off that little button that goes there. don't want to cut in on your images because you'll see those little micro cuts. So you do want to be careful on those. And so again, this is something that you can, you can collage anything. It doesn't have to be a piece of paper, you guys. When it comes to collage and we talk about art, people automatically always think like a 2D canvas. You can collage on top of an old, maybe cheapo sculpture that you found at the thrift store. Maybe you have a boring plant pot that you want to collage on top of. Maybe you have a holder for something, like say an office holder. You want to collage for somebody. I know we've got, holidays coming up, etc. And then we've got kids at home with projects and crafts. So perhaps there's some ways that we can use this collage to also create some usable art as well. So I'm getting this guy cut out. I'm following along all of my lines here, trying to make sure that I'm cutting right along my boundaries. I don't want to go over them. It's getting a little complicated though, so I think for this one, I'm going to go ahead and get back to it with my X-Acto knife. That way I make sure I've got this curve real nice. I'm not sure that I can get that as accurately with my scissors. I'm just going to go ahead and cut it off the way and get rid of that big clunky piece of paper. You see with my scissors I left a little bit, there's a little bit of yellow through here. So I need to go in and I need to clean this bit up a bit. So I've got to get rid of that yellow. If I can. It's a really thin spot I've got to shave off. There we go. I'm just holding on to my paper, trying to keep it from shifting, which is kind of hard when you're trying to cut such a thin piece off. So that we can get all of that taken care of. Man, I made a mess of that one, didn't I? I did. I made a mess of it. It's alright. Maybe we won't use that whole thing. I kind of messed up that one. That happens. We'll just move on to another image. I'll go ahead and get the rest of I'll get the rest of this cut out. Perhaps I need to change out my blade on mine. I thought it was sharp enough. So we're getting all that stuff taken care of, cut off. I'm going to set this guy off to the side now that I got most of him cut out. I'm going to keep those guys too. And we'll keep playing around and looking at our magazines here. I got a bunch of guys in suits. I got a shirt. What else do I have? Here's my favorite position as CEO. Haha, that's funny. That's a good one for the ladies. For the ladies. Alright, I'm going to get most of her cut out. I'm going to avoid the detail that's around the ear because I'm going to actually let my X-Acto knife take care of that. But I'm going to use my scissors where I think they'll be effective for me. Man, where do I find me that shirt? Okay. I'm going to hug her, get her nice and cut out, and then I'm going to you know what, I'm not going to keep the shadows. It's kind of hard to see where her pants end because they're so close to the shadow. I'm going to go ahead and go with that. And then I'm going to get this guy cut. I hope I'm doing everything where you can see it. Notice I'm kind of taking my paper and shifting it left and right and kind of keeping my scissors still. That's really what I found is one of the most effective ways in order to get things nice and cut and hugged around our shapes. You know, we're just practicing our cutting, and we're pulling all of these different images. Notice I'm pulling a variety of image sizes. I know the little stuff can get hard and complicated for you to cut, but you gotta do the little stuff. The little stuff is where a lot of that significance lies, and that will make your pieces successful. And so I'm going to go in, get this cut around the ear. You notice I'm kind of just doing it where I know I'm not going to mess up the paper as much. Get a small little curve for the ear. Make sure I hug this head real nice and tight because I don't want to have to go back and recut it again. I'm going to hit it from the side so that I don't tear it. Alright, we're getting things going here, you guys. Yeah, this is working out pretty well. I'm going to get the rest of the inside of her arm needs to be cut, so I'm going to get that guy taken care of. I didn't realize that we were so far forward. Okay, so I'm going to get all this stuff in the background cut out, because remember, all these tiny little spots on the inside matter, you guys. You want to get all this stuff cut out. You may have to put your finger on it to hold it as you cut it so you don't shift the paper. Magazine papers can be real thin. And so you may have to hold those guys together. Now we've got a really great kind of negative space spot in there. Now we want that. And then I'm going to get the rest of her legs cut off so we can get the rest of that. Okay. So we're going to set her off to the side. Notice I'm cutting stuff out. Various sizes. Let's see what else we got. No, we've got that same lady again. Here's a cool foot. I don't know, you guys. Here, I like this guy with the cello, though. We'll definitely use him. I might use that table, too. But I'm going to cut that out separate. But this guy I definitely want to use. So he's definitely going to need the X-Acto knife. And so I'm just going to use this. And I'm going to start working on my delicate areas first. just trying to capture as much info as I can without getting too much of that white paper left in the final image that's cut out. And so I'm just going through and trying to make sure that I do a good job with that. I don't know how I'm going to keep those guys. Those I may have to cut off. Those are just so thin. Sometimes you gotta just let some details go. There. Alright. And so I'm continuing to get this guy cut out. So I want to make sure that we're really careful on the things that we cut out. For instance, that face. Yeah, we want to make sure that we're super careful with that so we can get that cut out seamlessly, you guys. So I'm just being really careful. I'm holding on to my paper. Making sure I've got good connection points all the way through. Sorry about that. And I'm going to get this guy all cut up. And then I'm continuing to get this guy cut out. A little musician. So I'm using my X-Acto knife. You know, we want to make sure that everything that we're doing it with intentionality. Make sure I've got everything off of here. I've actually got some white showing. So I'm going to make sure I shave all the rest of that off. There we go. So I'm going to get the rest of that shoe. I'm going to ignore my shadows on here because they're so light. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Well, I tore that one a little bit, but that's okay. We'll be able to fix that. So I'm getting him cut out. Continuing to get our shapes taken care of. You can see here, I'm going to get the rest of that leg taken care of, so we can get that negative space out of the way. You see that should pop out. And then I've got just a little bit here that I had left. That should pop out. And you see I can use my X-Acto knife in order to pick up those real teeny pieces of paper so that I can get those out of the way and in the trash and not have it be something that our project could catch on, cause problems for the cutting process on any other aspects of it. So notice I'm holding on to my guy as I'm getting these small little bits cut out, because I want to be really careful. I've got a lot of really little sensitive spots in here that I don't want to accidentally cut through. Alright, so now we've got a really great little figure here with his instrument. We're getting lots of great images today. This is really just our planning day. So for this first part of the project, what you're going to go through and continue to do is you'll continue to work on grabbing and getting more images here. I've got all kinds of cool like brain images. I think those are kind of big for my needs, even though they're pretty neato. I don't think that'll work for me. But we've got all kinds of other interesting things here. You know what? I like this guy sitting in the chair, so I'm going to cut this guy out. I like how he's just sitting there and looking, and he's got a smile on his face. That's nice. So I think I'm going to cut this guy out. We've got some nice sharp lines here. So I think I can manage this with my scissors a bit. And then we can cut out all the other stuff where it's more complicated with, again, our X-Acto. I kind of like to use a combo of both, just because, too, I know not everybody has an X-Acto. So I want you to see the way that I kind of move my paper in concert with what my edge is doing. Because really I don't want to push too far forward with my scissors because it can tear the paper, but tiny little changes, you know, where I cut the paper, it matters. So I try to be aware of that. Oops, and show you guys just how you can achieve this with scissors. It's just, you know, it's kind of like having the paper do most of the movement, not the scissors. It's a little backwards. So I'm making sure I'm being super, ooh, I almost cut that arm off. That's alright, we can fix that. I'm going to be super careful. Make sure I've got that leg included in there. Okay. This guy's got really thin, spindly legs, so at least I don't have to cut out a wire frame. But I am going to have to cut this teeny little leg out, so I'm going to get that guy cut. And we will have to continue that along the bottom. So I'm going to get that guy cut. Right to that kind of edge, and then I've got this other leg here that I'm going to want to cut up there. So now we've got some great, I need to be really careful with these legs because they're super, super tiny. But now I've just got the rest of the background here that I need to cut out. Again, these don't look half as cool until the backgrounds are totally done and taken off. So that's why we need to spend this extra time to get those outside boundary lines taken care of in really sharp manners. And so then I can get rid of the rest of this guy. Oops. Put my lid on. And now I got a guy sitting on a chair all cut out. That's handy, isn't it? Yeah, that's super nice. So this means I've got a really nice array of images. Let's see what I got cut out today. We got some great ones taken care of. I've got my guy in a chair. I've got a guy playing cello. I've got my favorite position as CEO. Har, har, har. We've got a nice watch here. And then I've got a spaceship. I've got a face. And I've got a cool little circular kind of pencil, and then I've got these fun kind of backgrounds that we can play with as well. So I think this is coming along really nicely. I'm excited for this. I think we're getting some really good images together in order to start planning our scape. Remember, this first part of the project, this is the part of the project where we're just really aiming to cut out as many different things as we can. And maybe you'll start developing a theme based on the materials that you have. Perhaps you have a lot of gardening magazines, so then maybe you want to do a landscape and you want to do something fun because of that. Or perhaps you have a lot of like just ordering books with a lot of like images of warehouse tools. You know, you get that, whatever that company is that sends out those thick books with something. Anyway, Uline, that's it. So, I mean, you could cut out a crap ton of normal everyday objects and create scenes out of that. Make sure you're looking online. Google your collage art and take a look at all the different kinds. Again, you can play around with a lot of different types of personalities when it comes to how you want to play with your collage. You can do it ultra modern, you can do it surrealist, you can do it fairly realistic, or you can do it where you're just cutting out a bunch of colors and you're making an image from that. I am going to be showing you both ways, where we're cutting out our images in a surrealist kind of fashion to create this neat new image from all these things that otherwise don't belong together. And then I'm also going to utilize collage. Remember, I pulled some pieces and I was like, hey, this blue, this really dark blue, I might be able to use this for something. Well, I'm going to show you how to use our colors from our magazines, cut up collage, in order to also create images. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this very first part 1 of this project. Again, I work very hard in order to show you projects from start to finish in a realistic manner, down to the problem-solving process. It's important, it's important that the arts are accessible, and that means also to not always feel like it's bright white and perfect and laid out and prepped, and you know, sometimes that makes things feel unachievable, and the teacher side of me doesn't like that. I like being real just like I would with my students or my artists when I'm mentoring, and to have that come across in the same way online. Make sure you join me on Monday. Of course, I take Sundays off, but I will be back on Monday at 3 p.m. That's our Back to the Basics day. That's where we don't usually do finished projects, but we work on basic skills. We play around with a lot of our elements and principles of art on that day, and in strengthening our basic skills, whether that's realistic drawing, shading, line work, whatevs. As always, if you have any questions on how to do things, or if there's any mediums or how to draw kind of things, or how to do a certain kind of project, make sure you drop those in the comments. Let us know. I'm always looking for new projects to help you guys out and to help grow our creative arts in the DFW area through our YouTube channel while everything's kind of crazy. So this is a great way in order to create at home, which I believe wholeheartedly, and research says it's extremely good for your mental health. It's also extremely good for your problem-solving skills and brain health in general. So make sure that you're adding this into your daily routine if you don't already have it, and perhaps some of these videos will help you do that. Please remember, we've got all our videos archived on our Facebook page and YouTube page. So if you want to take a look at some of the past classes that I've taught, feel free to do that as well. And you can always join me and, where is he? He's laying down. Look, he's taking naps. Doobs was tired. He decided to nap on the floor. But make sure you join me Monday. Make sure you join me Monday. And until then, I hope you guys have a beautiful